Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Coaching Uncovered podcast. My name is Chris Berry, and I'm going to be your host for today. Joining us, we have David H. Lawrence, the 17th. David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Chris. And you?
I'm doing amazing, enjoying my Thursday morning, and looking forward to chatting with you.
Awesome.
So, yeah. So before we dive into the specifics of your business, the journey, kind of all the nitty gritty of what we want to go ahead and talk about, can you give everyone that's either listening or watching just an understanding of what you coach and help people on and what you do in
Sure.
general, we'll say?
Yeah. So I'm an actor in Los Angeles. I'm also a voice talent. I've been doing that for a long, long, long time. And at some point in the early 2000s, somebody cornered me and said, "You know how to do this voiceover stuff, right? Would you teach me?" And I said, "Sure." I was just getting started. I didn't have a lot of bookings. And so I created a series of courses. And I offered private coaching and tried to show people how to do voiceover in general and audiobook narration in particular from my perspective, because I was doing it every day, seeing how the business worked, that sort of thing. And that's how it all got started.
Understood. So got started there, and then you've been doing this obviously for a while, both as obviously an actor of you doing the action, then obviously coaching people. What would you say some of the highlights and biggest challenges you'd say of your business have been as you've been kind of going through and coaching people and helping them through this?
Sure. Well, like a lot of things that have some very, very good practitioners in it, it can appear that acting and voiceover are super simple, really easy to do. And in many ways, what I do for a living is pretty easy to do. There are some things where you don't even realize how the actor is just acting his butt off, and you don't know it because it's not apparent on the screen or on your speakers. I think that brings people to it and go, look, how hard can this be? I mean, I'm an auto mechanic. That's hard, you know. So I think that's one thing that people who really are good at this have a notion of. And then when they start to approach it, they realize there's some problems they need to solve for themselves. Where in their residents are they going to do their recordings if they're doing voiceover? What kind of gear are they going to use? Are they good enough? They really finally get to the point where they're doing it and they're like, oh, this isn't as easy as I thought. Okay. And so they start to unfortunately swing in the other direction and go, God, am I too old for this? Am I like not living in a production center like Los Angeles or Vancouver or New York or Atlanta? Can I even make a living at this? And so, an awful lot of those challenges are things that we cover with the now 40 classes in the curriculum. It's a full curriculum. And as things have been presented to me as challenges, I've met them with training. So, those are the highlights and somewhat the challenges of the business.
Yeah. So highlights being obviously helping people building out all this curriculum, helping them take that transformation of what they previously thought was easy, when really
Yeah.
there's a lot more nuance behind all this kind of being the highlights. And then the challenge is the aspect of building all of it out is the biggest thing.
I would think so. I think that a lot of people immediately assume a bunch of stuff.
Mm.
I live in a neighborhood that's too noisy, so I'll never be able to record properly. Or where do I even get auditions? I mean, there are all these things that people make assumptions about in our business. And then there are things that people tell themselves to make themselves happier that may or may not be true. And to be honest, I don't really like the term coach.
Yep.
Every coaching training that I've taken
Mhm.
tells you things like don't give your clients the answers. Ask the questions that lead them to the answers. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? We don't have time for that. If somebody says to me, what microphone do you use for voiceover? I will tell them that I use the Audio Technica AT2040 and have for a while. And it's inexpensive and it's awesome. And there's your answer. Not, well, Chris, what kind of microphone would make you feel good? What
Yep.
microphone would you like? What do you think would support you in your journey. I just, no, I'm a consultant.
Yeah.
And so maybe I've snuck on here inappropriately, and it should be the consultancy, uncovered or I'm sorry, tell me again, I want to make sure I get it right. Revealed, uncovered.
Uncovered. No, no, you got it right the
Yeah, yeah,
first
yeah.
time.
Okay.
Uncovered. Yeah.
Maybe that just for today's episode,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that a lot of people will go ahead and maybe do things because it's like, oh, what they think is best. When really, as you said, sometimes simplicity of just here's the answer. Don't get me
Sure.
wrong. Of course, I want to go ahead and teach and empower, for example, the coaches that I go ahead and work with. I used to try to go ahead and teach them how to run the Facebook ads, how to do all of that. And then I just realized, look, I could hire a person on my team and they'll get it done in this much time. Yeah, it's incur a
Hmm.
little bit of cost, but it's going to make the process go so much faster, make it so much easier. So
Sure.
I definitely agree with you on that regard. One question I did have. So obviously you kind of talked about you were an actor yourself, and then people started coming to you asking for help. What led you to keep diving deeper into this instead of just like, oh yeah, one off here, one off there? What made you decide, no, I really want to pursue this as something greater rather than just those one off sort of instances?
Well, I think the first class that I held, which was in person, we don't do in-person classes anymore. And not necessarily because of the pandemic, but because we teach people with them online sitting in the very locations that they're doing their auditioning and work.
Mm-hmm.
And so it gives them that in-place experience. But back in the day, like 2008 when I started or something,
Mm-hmm.
um, I thought two people would show up. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I rented a space for $50 and I'm like, all right, so I'll lose money. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I didn't have any expectations, right? So apparently, word spread and I sold out in 3 days. So
Sold out.
yeah, 20
Wow.
people. I had room for 20 people in the room. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like I sold out an arena,
Yeah.
but, still, I did not expect 20 people to show up. And, 20 people times $50 is not an insignificant amount of money. And I'm like, oh, all right.
Mm-hmm.
And the reaction was much more effusive than I thought it would be. Like people come up to me going, "Oh my God, this is like so like we've been wondering how this all works." And it actually was a one-off class that I did on how auditioning works in the world of voiceover as opposed to the world of on camera. And people were like, "Wow, I didn't even know these websites existed," because they were concentrating on, live acting on television and film, not doing voiceover work. So I'm like, do you guys want to do it again maybe in a couple weeks? What about next week? And so
Yeah.
it was almost as though I was being pulled as opposed
Mm-hmm.
to me trying to push into
Yeah.
the space. And I started with that one time class that I didn't teach again for a few years because what was clear was they wanted to know what the big categories of voiceover were. Where can they get the most work the fastest, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I started with commercials, and then I did audiobooks, and then I did a category called IVR, which is when you call a store or a company and you get a recorded voice saying, press one for sales, press two for service, that kind of thing. There are voice people that do that. I'm one of them. I used to be the voice of America Online. And so people back in the day when it was the bomb, people would get mad at me 4 million times a day before they'd get mad at a live customer service rep, right? So
Yeah.
I built classes around what people were actually asking for, which is, I think, a big uh, point for people who are creating online classes. They think, oh, I love this. So I'm going to do this class on how to peel cherries. Everybody's going to love this class. It's going to be great. Well, I had the privilege of having the world of my audience tell me what they wanted vocally. I didn't even have to like do a survey and do all the things that people do these days to find a niche that they both have expertise in, they want to teach, and that people want to listen to or watch. And so my audience led me to the areas that they wanted support in and coaching in. So that's kind of the way that all happened. And the coaching happened along with the classes. So I was offering private coaching as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny how it works like that. Sometimes in life, just the things happen stance of like, oh, this and then that. Like you said, it's almost like you're being pulled, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay. So you've gone through this from being an actor, having this first event. We've talked about some of the highlights, some of the biggest challenges inside of your coaching business. One of the biggest things that so many coaches, consultants, people that are educators that are looking to go ahead and run a business, what they struggle with is generating leads. Now, for you, obviously, you were in this industry. And so maybe for those initial people, it's like, okay, it makes a lot of sense. Just they came from that medium. As you began to continue growing your business, and even today, how are you currently generating leads?
So I think being of service and making sure that that is your main goal uh, kind of helps generating leads take care of itself. We had the in-person classes, and that kind of led to people in the area in Los Angeles finding out about it, coming and building my audience. But I have had the absolute pleasure and joy of being a personal friend and a peer of Jeff Walker for probably 25 years, maybe even longer. I
Mm,
knew him before PLF was a thing, and I've watched it grow. I was one of the original users. I've used it several times a year for the last 20 years to launch both my VOHeroes curriculum and my audiobook specific training programs. I think the whole notion of providing free content, gaining the trust and sort of good feelings that you get when you see somebody do their teaching and go, yeah, I like that guy,
mhm,
that is how I get leads, cold leads from people that I've never, met before. And also in service of that, I do a podcast once a week. It's not an interview podcast. It's a quick 5 or 8 minutes of something about our business that I think would be helpful to my constituency and help them get their job done better. And that gets published like clockwork every Tuesday morning. And it is a little tiny, but hopefully potent touch on a regular basis where I'm not asking them to buy anything. I'm just trying to make sure that I grease the wheels for them in terms of their business, in terms of their performance practice. And so having that kind of content available where you're just simply giving. The only thing you're asking for is a bit of their attention. You're not asking for any money. They've already given you their mailing address, their email address, so that you can get the podcast to them. Sometimes they're not even on the list, but I encourage them to subscribe to the channel and join my list and things like that. And so that's how it's grown over the years. And I also feel like the content that I create and the way that I present it, which is very much like this, just talking to the camera live. I don't do a lot of editing. I just talk live. I'm pretty capable that way. And I think what it does is it very much corrals people into the space that is my sweet spot.
mm,
Helping people have a more realistic view of their opportunities in on camera and in voiceover and in audiobooks, helping them get rid of a lot of the myths that we tell ourselves all the time about success, and also helping them feel better about the fact that there are far more actors than there are roles, and you're not getting the job. Just so you know, you can audition for it, but just count on the fact that you're not getting the job. And then on those rare occasions where somebody somewhere makes a vicious mistake and you get booked, well, enjoy the heck out of that because it's pretty rare.
yeah. Hmm. And so within that, the main things that you kind of mentioned were your podcast, where you're continually providing value. The overarching thing is from marketing piece, provide value, be of service up front. And then from
Absolutely.
them, people come to know, like, and trust you.
Yeah.
And the mediums of which you're doing it right now is the podcast that you're doing like clockwork. And then you talked about providing value, and that's what led to cold traffic from other people's audiences. What can you elaborate a little bit more? Is it you giving, let's say, somebody who has an audience of your ideal client, you're just saying, hey, I'll give a free class? Is it
Sure.
like that, or like what's the and is the podcast just even organically bringing in new people? Let's say new people, not as much in the nurturing aspect. Nurturing is obviously very important, but
Sure.
we understand that podcast piece. The new side of things, is it the podcast? Is it you going out and finding people and offering free value? What's the thing that generates the new leads, would you say?
Sure. I think on a constant sort of drumbeat basis, it's people searching for solutions to their problems and finding
Mm.
an episode of my podcast. I
Okay.
mean, at this point, I've done 13,000 plus episodes
13,000?
over the years. Yeah.
Wow.
I started podcasting in the mid 90s when it wasn't even called podcasting. I was sending out an email every day with a quick audio headlines of what was going on in the world of technology and entertainment to an email list. I
Mm.
mean, I was sending little tiny real audio files out. So, um, yes, that. And also, I have a really healthy affiliate program that I both participate in with other people who are adjacent to what I do in the world of performance. So rather than voice talent, maybe it's acting coaches or audition coaches or branding coaches in the world of performance, actors doing their websites and things like that. And so for each one of the launch events, my mailing list increases pretty significantly based on other affiliates sending people my way and them having to join my list to get the content. And I don't make them join my list. I give them the content for my pre-launch content, the lessons that are free ahead of the launch, and then I ask them, if you'd like to know when the next one comes out, join my list. I feel like I never want to be uh, pushing people. I'll encourage people, but I don't want to push them or fool them, or I want them to come of their own accord. And I feel like I'll draw them in, just like I was drawn in the beginning to actually do the work. So between the podcast appearances like this,
Mm.
when I'm on podcasts, people always contact me and go, "So I hear you're teaching authors how to narrate their own book. I have a new site called narrateyourownbook.com, and it's taking my audiobook narration training for actors and voice talent and altering it just a little bit and adding some things that authors need to know about, like cover art and how to work with Kindle and ACX and things like that. And I created a new package that was 95% done when I first started. And so I'll be on a podcast like this that doesn't necessarily pertain specifically to my business. You're in the coaching world, I'm in the performance world. But there will be people who are watching going, wait a minute, I want to know how to do that. And
Mm.
so that kind of like helps a little bit. But I think the biggest thing is to just always know that you're going to build an audience if you build your offerings of service. And my affiliates are great. We all know each other. I love them to death, and I get new ones all the time. And the ones that have been with me for a while, I feel great about being able to contribute to their financial health. So, but that's how the mailing list gets bigger, and then that just kind of multiplies on itself. So,
Yeah. Well, it's first of all, 13,000 episodes, a very impressive figure. But now it makes sense because you've put all this time and building, I'm assuming it for so long too. I'm assuming you should have a massive organic SEO, everything of people coming in, like you said, searching for answers and everything,
yeah,
which obviously generates those leads, but then also nurtures them because now it's like, oh, they begin to know, like, and trust you. And the biggest thing, as you mentioned, is all leading with service. So
absolutely.
from the podcasts, as people are, let's say, listening to the podcast and they're going through, obviously at some point you're inviting them to book a call, to take that next step that's kind of with you, aka then eventually turning them into a sale, a paying client. Well, what does that process typically look like for you? Is it just call to actions in the middle of the podcast that then you're getting on a call, or is it a call to action to click a link in the description that leads to a sales page? How do you typically like to set it up?
So this is going to frustrate you just as much as it's frustrated anybody that I've taken on as a business coach over
Yeah.
the years. I don't ask for the sale. I
Okay.
ask for the sale at the end of my PLF pre-launch content. I'll say,
Okay.
okay, we've spent this week together with 3 lessons talking about how to get started in voiceover. On Sunday
Mm.
morning, I'm going to have a special offer for you. If you want to go deeper with me, if you like what you've seen here, I'd love to have you as part of my community. I'll tell you about this great deal that I've got. And I presage that, and then I actually ask for the sale on Sunday morning, but only during launch episodes. When I'm doing a podcast,
Yeah.
I wall off what I do to be completely of service, not
Mhm.
to turn it into a sales call. The
Yeah.
only ask that I have is please hit the like button. You can subscribe to the channel if you want to.
Yeah.
You can click the notification bell and you'll be told when the next episode comes out. Forward this to an actor that might need to hear what I'm saying here.
Mm.
And that's it. And you can scroll to the bottom and join my list if you want to, but usually people that are hardcore watchers of the podcast episode are already on the list. But I do generate that. I'm not using my podcast as a direct lead generator. I'm using it as a reputation builder, as a what were the three words that you were repeating over and again? Like,
Uh,
know, and trust.
yep. Correct.
That's it. It's not about a sales call. And it's on purpose that way. And I've had business coaches like, don't you want to 10x your business? And I'm like, No, I don't. I have a team of 12 people. I have 8 coaches on my team. I don't find that to be a real struggle to manage, and I don't want to get any bigger than that. Plus, I'm loving life, man. I like where things are. For me, this is a concept that a lot of business coaches just refuse to embrace, and that's right sizing your business. Everybody's all bent on growth. Great. Maybe you need growth. Maybe you're only making $50 a week with your current practice. You need to grow your business if it's going to be a business and not a hobby.
Mm.
But I'm really happy. I'm happy with the way my community has developed. We have an incredibly respectful and mutually supportive environment. I like that. If it got 10 times as big, it would be difficult to maintain that, I would think. I don't know, but I don't want to find out.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable where I am. And every year we have a new cohort that seems to get what I do.
Mm.
I seem to get what they do. So I don't ask for the sale. So I'm sorry, I can't answer that question.
No, it's all good. Well, one thing I'm curious about though is you talked, I believe the acronym you used was PLF. And
Yeah,
at the end of those 3 days, then you invite them to go to the next step if they would like to. And it's a very soft, you pre-frame like, look, I'm gonna offer you something if you want to continue with me. It's not like you're hard selling or anything.
right.
How do you get people into this PLF event then?
So product launch formula is the granddaddy of all marketing frameworks that people have seen online over the years. And it was developed by Jeff Walker. And the basis of it is a series of free training lessons, which are called pre-launch content or PLC.
Mhm.
And at the end of the PLC, that's when I say, okay, then we're going to open cart for a week, have a deadline, and have some bonuses if you join early. And that's it. It's not, again, it's not a push hard sell. I don't even do cold ads on social. I don't. I find it to be, I don't necessarily want to deal with somebody who hasn't kind of been warmed up by the podcast episodes or word of mouth. Like I don't want some guy scrolling at 2:30 in the morning in Paducah, Kentucky, no offense, Paducah, that, is sick and tired of working as an auto mechanic and thinks how hard could being a voiceover guy be? I mean, come on now. So I don't want that kind of a client because they don't know anything about me. They're not interested. They're just interested in getting out of what they're doing. They're not really interested in getting into what I'm doing, and they have no idea who I am. So for me to do it just doesn't work for me. And I know that there are people going, "Oh, this poor guy, he could be making a lot more money if he just like get off his high horse." And okay, maybe I'm happy where I am. Everybody runs their business just a little bit different from the next person, even if they are devotees of Amy Porterfield or Jeff Walker or Danny Iny or Brendan Burchard or whoever their marketing guru person is. I resonated very much with Jeff Walker and his story. And I have been part of his community over the years, and it just works for me. And the funny thing is, I'm now finding out that Narrate Your Own Book, my target audience has a very different velocity on doing their work than my actors and voice talent. They're authors. They've probably been working on their title for months, for years, maybe decades. They're
Mm.
not interested in getting anything done right away. They'd like to, but yeah, they'll get to it, you know.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting. I don't think I'm not sure that PLF is the best solution for that because that's an event-based launch. And so you're kind of gathering a group of people that may or may not be on the same timeline. So I'm still working with that. I just launched that last year. So, and it's turned out great. I love it. But yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, that's awesome. No, it definitely makes sense. You're very much of a service-based approach. And when you have people that are getting on a call with you and they already the three words know, like, and trust you,
uh-huh.
everything becomes so much easier, of course. And so, okay. So I know that we only have a couple more minutes left. There is one last question that I am curious to go ahead and know, and then we can go ahead and talk about if people are interested in checking out the podcast, checking out what you do and everything. We'll invite them to do that.
Hmm.
But the last question I do have for you is, knowing what you know now, after doing all this coaching, after starting the podcast, everything, and you were to go ahead and go back to old David, right? David that's just starting off. What piece of advice would you have for David as he was just starting?
Trust your instincts. Don't doubt yourself one moment. And when that person who knows who she is tells you you should be teaching online, not in person, listen to her earlier rather than later, you know? So, but other than that, I'm like, I would, if I were to tell myself, not part of my coaching practice, but in general, I spent a lot of time wondering if I should move to Los Angeles and be an on-camera actor. And if I had it to do all over again, I've said to many people, I would come here in the 80s, excuse me, rather than waiting until early 2003 to come here, because I feel like I kind of missed the heyday of syndicated television. And I think I would have been really good at it, as good as I am at it now. But I would have been able to do it earlier. But then I think, okay, what about you as a person? How would that have changed you and your personality and your life experience? And how would that have changed what you end up um, being perceived as by casting people, by your peers, by directors, by your students? So I kind of just like, I'm happy. I'm just happy. And I'm
Yeah,
happy to stay where I am. So yeah.
absolutely. One last thing before we go ahead and finish up this episode. For anybody who really resonated with your message, they want to check out the podcast, they want to connect with you more. What is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So, VOHeroes.com, VOHEROS, there's an E before the S in heroes. VOHeroes.com/podcast or VOHeroes.com in general. Um, the That's my main page if they want to know more about me, David H. Lawrence, XVII.com. Um, uh, I don't know that's where I would send people, and they can see all the podcast episodes and scroll through them and see if there's anything that resonates. But yeah, VOHeroes.com.
Okay, I like it. Well, David, it was great having you on the podcast. I appreciate you sharing some of the insights as all your experience, and we'll go ahead and we'll talk more soon.
Chris, thank you so much.
Awesome. Okay. So everyone, I hope that you were able to enjoy this episode as much as I was able to go ahead and enjoy it. David, you can tell he's has so much consistency in everything in his experience and all of that. Two things that really stood out for me about David. Number one was the aspect of leading with value, especially in today's world of it's just like go 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 go. We got to make $1,000,000. We got to get the Lamborghini and then the Rolex. It's you can tell David in the way that he explained his business. He's wanting to lead with service. He's wanting to lead with value. It's not that it has to go 0 to 100 in the next 2 months or it's a failure. He's in it for the long haul and he's passionate about what he does and he just wants to help people. And I think that's a really important philosophy to embody because if you're starting your coaching business or growing up your coaching business and you're like, okay, I want to do it for a year, make some money and then I'm out. I don't think that this is the medium for you to go down that. And that's what David embodies of leading with value, leading with service, building this audience, this content and everything. So that was the first thing that really I appreciated from David. The second one was focus on running your business how you want to. Don't get me wrong. I feel that David could probably, not even the fact of making more money, but helping more people. He could probably do a couple of things to have more of an audience. It's maybe different than me. But in the end, the most important thing is how do you want to go ahead and run your business? Right. And oftentimes it's like, not only in business, but every single aspect of life, we go living our lives, running our business, how it's supposed to happen, how other people say it's meant to be. You can tell David has so much peace. David enjoys what he does every single day. And I think that's something that's so important, not to let the noise, not to let other people, of course, always be open for improving, but really running it how you want to. So that was the second thing that really stood out to me from David. If you did enjoy this episode, please make sure to go ahead and drop a like. Go ahead and check David out if you'd like to connect with him. If you would like to see more episodes like this, make sure you go ahead and subscribe. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Coaching Uncover podcast.